Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon. Today I'm going to show you how to set up, play and review the game Transformers deck building game. Now, this is a game for 1 to 5 players. You can set it up either solo, competitive or cooperatively. Now, I will be deliberately setting up just for a solo play, and I've already kind of partially got stuff ready. The rest of this can go back in the box, and I'll show you how that will work separately. I've also done a separate video on actually how to arrange everything else here. I won't be using any of these tokens today, but you will have seen that in the prior video as well. You're also going to grab a standee. Now, I've deliberately chosen to go with Bumblebee, so I've already got Bumblebee near the top of these standees as well. You're playing as 6 different Autobots, and you're going to get ready to roll out. So in this game, like I said, there's lots of different ways of playing it. It's a deck building game. What that means is you're looking to basically get various cards into your hand, improve what your hands can be, and ultimately try and defeat the bosses. So you're going to take, I've already got this deliberately laid out, like I said, watch my other video on how to lay stuff out. You're going to take 6 courage cards, a patrol card, a fixed card, a reserves card, and a firepower card. They allow you to do different things. They allow you, for example, to flip things in adjacent spaces, as I'll get onto. They allow you to return damage. They allow you to draw up more power cubes, these energons. And amongst other things, you're allowed to do other things as well, such as play extra cards. So I'll leave this off to the side slightly. Whilst I'm still doing this, please ensure you hit the like button and the notification bell and subscribe button if you want to check out more content. There has been daily videos for the last 3 years, and hopefully you'll be finding this of interest. So these oversized cards. Now, if you use the Harry Potter Hogwarts battle stuff, there's some special stuff which you can sleeve them. Like I said, I'm going to play as Bumblebee, and you initially start in alt mode, so a bit like in the Marvel Champions. Please check out my videos for that. You're starting off as the car. Okay, aside from that, everything else can go back in the box. You're also going to need some other things in here. So you're going to start off with 2 energon crystals. These small pink cubes. There's a large one just to show you that you can have bigger ones. They represent 5 as and when you might need them. So for now, I'm going to put everything back in the box. So whilst I'm doing this, please ensure you check out the description in YouTube for anything else I might have to add. I might accidentally say something which obviously isn't relevant to this stuff, such as maybe a mistake, because it is going to be a new rulebook coming out. This is version 1. There is another version, they're reprinting the entire game and the rulebook and the cards. So please bear with this. There's a start of turn marker as well, and an ongoing one should you be playing with schemes, which we'll talk about in a bit. And these power tokens, which are basically spent into your turn. So ultimately, every player is going to take 1 of these and a standee, 2 energons per person, and 3 of these tokens. These are just to show you that some things can kick into the game as well. So you are going to have a hand of 10 cards. You're going to shuffle them, and then you are going to draw 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now these are sleeved, so again, please watch my other video for obviously seeing what's inside it, and I'll show you an example of a first turn. We have the reserves card, the power card, the courage card, another courage card, and another courage card. So there we go. That's our starting hand. There are lots of other videos on the channel if you want to check out other deck building cards. Those other cards are going to go over here as your draw pile. As you're spending the cards, you're going to have a separate pile over here for your discard pile as well. So now I've set up that, we're now going to go through the rest of the deck and how you're going to set up the main part of the game. So initially, we're going to talk about whether you're setting this up as co-op or otherwise. So we have some cooperative schemes. So fun enough, if you're playing it cooperatively, or you can play it regularly if you want to play it with a solo mode as well, you're going to take out these cooperative schemes. So you're chucking these in, but for your first game, let's leave them out. And for the deception scheme or Decepticon scheme as well, you can leave them out for your first game. Otherwise, you're going to leave these in. They're things that are going to hinder you and going to work towards helping your opponent, your adversary, which in this game, of course, is the game, which happen to be these Decepticons. So in this case, for example, your move is reduced to 0 when it's in play. Of course, when you happen to be in your alt mode. So that's bad. So you have to deal with that. Aside from that, we're dealing with various bosses. We have Soundwave as an Astro Train, a level 1 boss. We have Starscream and Blitzwing as level 2 boss. And we have Megatron and Devastate level 3 boss. I've played through all of these bosses. I've played through every card in the game as well. You're going to take these cards, shuffle them, take 1, and it's going to go into your game. You're going to take a level 2 card, shuffle them, take it into your game as well. And you're going to shuffle these and put 1 of these into your game as well. So you have a level 1, 2, and 3 card. The rest of them are going to go back in the box. And you're not going to see what it actually would have been fighting otherwise to keep it a bit fresh. So they can go back in that slot there. Next up, we're going to deal with the cards which are next coming up. And over here, we have the standard deck card. So basically, if it doesn't have the word basic on it, if it doesn't have the word Decepticon scheme or cooperative scheme, then these are your regular cards that you're going to be playing with. Now, I say you're going to be playing with them, you're only going to go through about a third of all of these cards. And I won't necessarily talk about the review in total now, but I will say it can be a bit luck-based. You may, like I said, only see about a third of the entire game, and that's just the amount of cards that you're playing with. It does depend on your player count. It seems that not many people are playing this at a higher player count, where you would be getting 3 more cards, but that's going to be available too. And now we're going to just go through and obviously make that full deck, and then depending on the player counts, we're then going to be creating the matrix, and that size will depend on the amount of obviously players you're playing with. I'll be setting this up for either 1 or 2 player game. What that means is we're going to have a matrix, which you'll see will be a grid of 3 by 4 cards. So here we are, this is what we're going to be playing with. Now, the last thing I haven't shown you is Relic Cards. This is in cooperative play, in competitive play. You're going to be playing with these cards, and they can give you extra things. They can give you victory points and extra bonuses when you play them out, but they'll not be scoring you the victory points unless you place them into your vault, which basically means they're going to be played out of your hand. So if you want to push your luck, you can then obviously discard it. It's going to come back into your hand later, but unless obviously the game's going to end, and the game ends once all 3 bosses, so level 1 boss is going to be defeated first, in a very much pandemic-like way, which again you can check lots of videos of different pandemics I've played, and I have played every single pandemic on the channel as well. And again, you're looking to get victory points, but equally you're going to get victory points only if you get them into your vault, i.e. played out your hand. I won't be showing you obviously in play in this particular setup. I might be doing a separate solo playthrough, so again, please ensure you hit the subscribe button for now. So for now, we're now going to deal out the cards. So if we are playing it solo, we are going to set out 7 cards. 1, 2, 3. And an extra deck for 4, and then you're going to go through it and do a total of 7 cards in these 3 decks. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this is going to have 5 in it. 3, 4, 5. All of these cards, like I said, will not be used in this game. Like I said, please bear in mind, every card is not going to be present in a game, especially at lower player counts. And so that review I'll be coming back onto, but for now, you're going to have each of these decks. You're going to place your level 1 card in this deck, level 2 in this deck, and finally level 3 over here. You're then going to have this as your bottom of the deck. You're going to shuffle up these cards, and then you're going to put them on here. So then you take level 2 deck, and it's go on top. And then I think that was there as well. And then the level 1 deck goes on top of that as well. And there you have it. So that is our deck. That's what's known as the main deck. We also now need to be setting up our display over here. What this display represents happens to be, again, the matrix that we're playing out. Now, these cards are always placed face down, which, from a review point of view, can be a bit difficult to remember, because normally when you draw a card, you tend to flip it over, but in this game, you do not do that. So, as long as you've played a lot of Hanabi, or something like that, where you don't look at your cards, you'll be absolutely fine. So that is the matrix. I must admit, it looks a lot better when these aren't sleeved, but just to show you, it does look a lot better. Otherwise, it looks a bit bland, but it is what it is. So there we go, the card's set out. You're now going to teleport. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to start wherever you want. I'm going to start here, for example. I happen to be Bumblebee, which gives myself a movement of 2. That means I can move 2 spaces, or I can move 1 space and search. So you can use movement to search. You need to move, obviously stay where you are and flip that card, or I could choose to move 1 location and again, move again, or flip, or something like that. And then you're going to turn your card, show you that you've used it. But when you transform, you may flip a card in an adjacent space face up. When you battle adversaries, you have -1 power. So you're not as strong, obviously, in your ult mode, but when you flip it, which normally costs you 1 energon, then when you flip it, during each turn, 1 power for each ally you control. So in this deck, you'll see we can pick up allies. You can spend 1 energon to get 1 power, and you can spend 2 energon each time you draw an encounter card this turn. Draw 2 encounter cards and instead discard 1 of them. So there are encounter cards, which I'll talk about separately as well. Those are extra cards that can come into the game. And for now, let's just talk about what you can be doing on your turn. So right now, we are looking to find the bosses. The bosses are in here somewhere, and they're going to have different power strengths. Maybe 4, maybe 6, maybe 8 or 10, something like this. And we're trying to improve our hand, because right now our power is listed on the side of the card. So right now I have a power of 1. Now, you only have 5 cards, so right now my power is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is not bad at all. It might defeat, obviously, some weaker bosses, but there's that stronger boss, which might be 8 or 10 or something like this. I need to find better cards. So let's right now just say I move for 1 just to show what movement looks like. Obviously I wouldn't normally sort of transport it there. But let's just say I spend 1 and flip 1. Okay, so I spent my 2 movement, obviously when I was in my Bumblebee form, and then I'm going to turn it and flip my card, turn it that way and tap it. Okay, so I can take that card if I want to. How do I take it? I spend the power. This is the cost, so I spend 2 cards. So let's say I spend these 2 courage. It's going to go into my discard. Let's place it down here and take this card. Unlike Aeon's End, it doesn't matter the order, you're just going to shuffle your cards afterwards altogether. So I've still got this to spend, otherwise I've lost it. I've got some more movement to spend, so I can move for 1, but in this instance it doesn't do anything. I technically could, I believe, still spend an energon to flip this over, and even though it's spent, obviously I can't then use the ability, but I'm now ready to go. But it does say, hang on, when we say that, but when you transform, you may flip a card in adjacent space face up. So I could flip up, let's say, well, before obviously I spent my movement card, let's say I flip this card, spending my transform, and then I have a movement. I've got 2, we have side swipe, so we have another Autobot here. We have side swipe, and I can spend 2, let's say. We also have range. This means I can buy a card or interact, maybe buy an attack or something, at a distance of 1. So I could attack here, sometimes, or buy something there. Sometimes the range could be 2 or more, whatever it might be. Obviously that's further away. So I spend 2, take that card and go for 2. And I've suddenly got a little bit left. I don't have much left. Now the last thing I haven't fully set up is the fact that you have some damage cards. So when you take damage, there are about 20 cards here. And again, if you take damage, it's not a good thing to happen to you, because right now you need to resolve assists, which is just an extra kind of pain to deal with. You also have these transform and rollout cards. Now sometimes I get these, sometimes I don't. I know some people don't get them at all. Ultimately giving a bit of flexibility. So if you run out of movement, obviously this is a good card to have. If you run out of strength or power, then that's a good card to have, and it has range. So I have a bit of power left. I've only got 1. If I had 2 left over, maybe I just choose to get this card because it costs me 2. But obviously it's better than this courage card, which is only power. There's no movement on it. So that goes here too. And lastly, as I said, we have these encounter cards. If you come up against a boss, or it might be an adversary, then again you could be losing victory points, which won't be relevant obviously if you're playing this solo or obviously cooperatively. But if it's a boss, obviously you have to deal with something else as well. And if it is a boss confrontation, then in this instance it's going to destroy a maneuver card that you have. If you control none, get 2 damage, which we've talked about already. So that's how that happens. What happens in your turn? Well, obviously you're going to untap your character. You are then going to refill the deck. And as you can see, one other thing I was going to say about the review is it's a bit annoying having to take a card off, put it back on, that kind of stuff. And finally, you're going to draw a final hand of 5 cards, which we already know what they are because the last 5 cards we had. So, what do we have next? Well, again, these would have been spent because you can't keep anything left over. We've got 5 cards, and what can we do now? Well, we don't have any damage, so you don't have to worry about that. You can flip an adjacent card. We have no more movement left, so we can't use both abilities. So maybe we've already flipped. You can keep flipping if you want to. For now, we are here, so we're just going to flip. I don't know, let's flip where we are until we can buy it. So that's spent. We've got this repair bay. You may destroy 1 card you control. Well, that's nice. I like to thin my deck. So I spend 2 cards, and we can get that card as well. I have 2 cards left. We have some movement left, so let's just move for 1. I've got 1 power card left, doesn't do anything, so let's leave it for there. I mean, I could choose to have quite an easy light turn, but that's it. End your turn. You're then obviously going to refill the grid or the matrix. You're then going to take these cards. Obviously, we're not using our character right now, and then, which we could have chosen to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're going to go again. So you can lose the game if all the cards are drawn out into the matrix. You can lose that way. Aside from that, of course, you win if you can defeat these bosses as they come up. As I said, you can use these tokens just to show that you've actually spent them, whether it be movement or power or something, just to show that you've been a tracking token. So now let's talk about what I think of the game. I do like the colour coding, so I like the fact that, for example, you do have obviously red showing that you're Autobots. You have other cards here which again could be an Autobot 2 and they can work together. You obviously have some Decepticons which are purple. We happen to have things like allies, which we've shown you earlier. So we have things like this, which you can keep and play next to you for the rest of the game. So it's ongoing, which means you can have 1 movement during your turn. We have more Autobots right now. We have a sight, which allows us to do things such as gain a face-up ally for the Matrix. Over here we have some more, obviously, adversaries. We've got another sight. We have a maneuver, so we talked about maneuvers a second ago, and we happen to have a drill. So as you keep going and taking these cards, which you need to keep doing, eventually you're going to get through to these bosses. Now you need to make sure you have enough strength to take the bosses on, so that's something to be aware of, and of course dealing whatever they might come at you with. So I think of the game, well, the rulebook, and I was warned that it could be quite bad, and I had watched 7 videos online, and no one talked about the bad rulebook, no one talked about, to be honest, even the play in very much detail whatsoever. So I was quite surprised by all that. But the rulebook's very good and actually giving you a very good gist of what to do. But when you start playing it, it falls down massively. Now, even the new version of the game, they're going to have a thing whereby to transform, they're going to call it convert, which I found really weird. Why on earth they're changing it from being called transformers to being converters in disguise, quite frankly. There's no glossary, there's no appendix, there's a small FAQ, which is all right, but luckily the numerous questions I've asked online is much more better than that. This is why I've done this video as well. I've made 980 plus videos now, and obviously people seem to enjoy them. It's kind of forensic and it's detailed to a degree. I may have made some mistakes, I hope I haven't, but ultimately there's some good things going on here. It takes a bit longer than a standard deck builder, I must admit, but I do like the fact it has a co-op version. It obviously has a solo mode, and obviously it has this competitive mode as well, so that's good. And just to let you know and showing you how things work at the various player counts. Yeah, I mean, run something through the rulebook as well quickly. So here's the matrix laid out, obviously, but that isn't how you would lay it out if you're playing as a 2 in my view. You'd put your cards sideways because there's so much to read in terms of text, which you can get with deck building games. Obviously, you have different amount of cards. I mentioned 7 cards, but in a 2-player game, you're obviously playing out more, so that's something else to be aware of. And yeah, aside from that, it's quite a very text-heavy rulebook, so there's not too many explanations. There's some examples, but they could be a lot better, and there's lots of things where things do not make sense. So, and I've given you quite a few ideas in terms of positives, like the relics, can be good, but you can race around, but it's a bit of an obstacle to kind of do that. So the negatives are obviously the rules we talked about, the glossary we talked about. The power is the same token, which I think when they refer into power, it just gets a bit confusing in terms of mixing them up. These I don't think are necessary, and it's annoying that they are the same kind of token. These are fine. Obviously, these are different size. Well, obviously the big ones are bigger size, and that's fine. Excellent insert compared to the likes of Marvel Champions, which is awful. Like I said, it takes a little bit too long. I think there are better alternatives. You have to check your sites and your allies, of course, to make things are working, to make sure you have the space. It does take quite a lot of space, and this is only set up for 1 person currently, so you can see how much space I've already taken up. There's no engine building pivot, so unlike other games whereby you have to convert to victory points, it does have it with the relics, but in this case you're just trying to constantly tank up to obviously take on the bosses, which is kind of fine. It's thematically it's all right. Again, I like the artwork. I think it works for Transformers as well. Flipping your cards is all right, and yeah, I think there's more I want to say, but yeah, I mean, you do want this deck face up. Having to go blind, I like the peril element, but I just feel it's a bit too clunky for what it is. So hopefully you found that of interest. This has been Transformers deck building game. Like I said, if you want to follow through on Linktree via the description, there are occasionally time-sensitive competitions, so keep checking back. As I mentioned before in the other video, it's made by Renegade Game Studios. Hasbro are associated with it, but obviously it's not printed on the box. And like DC Comics of the deck builder, this is a game by Matt Hyra and Dan Blanchett. Aside from that, again, I hope you find that of interest. Please do let me know in the comments. Ideally, YouTube is best. Please follow on via Linktree, of course. There's Instagram, over 2,400 posts, so follow there. Also along on Facebook. And again, I'll speak to you soon. So, back to the table.